Hey, good morning, folks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, more.
All right. And Mike, are you here for the whole time or only part of the time? Paging Mike Purcell. I don't know if you have audio yet. And I'll take that as a no.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Hey, Dan. Mike, do you have audio now?
I'm gonna say no.
How about now? Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Are you here for the whole meeting or only part of the meeting today?
Only part of the meeting. I'm going to have to leave after the first hour. I apologize.
Because the reason that I ask is we have one of your pull requests that we have not reviewed in your absence, or at least we've been waiting for you. And so we may reorder
Yeah,
that
I'm
part of
very
the
sorry
agenda.
about that.
So it just
That's
means
good.
that I may do dynamic reordering of the agenda then to make sure that you can be here for the one thing that we're waiting for.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
That would be helpful because I have to leave the last half hour.
Okay, well, when I get to let's just jump to it now here. Let's see, Richard, are you here for the whole time? Or just the first hour?
Yeah, Dave, yeah, I'm here for the whole meeting.
Okay, and Ben, are you here for the whole time?
Yep.
Okay, I wonder.
Dave, I will also have to leave after the first hour.
Okay. Let's see, who's giving the Auckland presentation today?
I believe Tate agreed to that.
Okay, and I don't see Tate on yet. Okay, so one possibility is we could push the Auckland stuff to later in the agenda. The Auckland annual review. Okay, because I think the things that I would like you here for, Mike, is 10, and then I added point 11, which is just another maybe sub-bullet of 10.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm just looking at anything else we might be able to move around. I don't see, okay, Thomas Wasati is on here too. Okay, the hackathon report. All right.
So honestly, the earlier I can leave, the better from my point of view. I know
Okay.
it's awkward, and I apologize, but I'm struggling to get the time. So,
all right, then I might want to propose that we move these up here. It's a sub-bullet. Okay.
well,
Something
thank you.
Something like this. And then we'll make sure that this is time boxed, right? So that we can get to these other things, because otherwise sometimes this expands to fill available time. And see, if Richard and Ben are here the whole time, then that's not a problem, but otherwise we could rearrange some of these if needed, so,
I only need a few minutes. Anytime you works.
okay. All right, then we can, all right, so now I'm gonna go back to the beginning and say, welcome all to the Confidential Meeting Consortium's Technical Advisory Council meeting. This meeting is being recorded. As a reminder, or in case you're new, this meeting is an open public meeting where all technical conversations are intended to be community consensus. And so we welcome input from all attendees. The only things that we vote on is budget and minutes approval, or maybe official statements from the CCC. But otherwise, we welcome all contributions and we support open source projects, and we welcome new contributions to open source projects. This meeting is covered by the Linux Foundation's antitrust policy. If you haven't read it recently, linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. All right, so we were just doing a little bit of agenda bash based on when people that are contributors to different parts here could be here. Unless there's any other changes, then we will proceed in this particular order. And I'm guessing we won't actually do number 11. We'll just delete that one. Okay, now it fits on.
Sorry, I joined a few minutes late. Maybe you already covered this, but I was expecting someone else to run the meeting.
No, and the vote here, the change in chair happens at the end of this month.
Ah, okay.
According to the previous schedule of when the vote would have concluded. So the terms are annual. And so end of November is when the chair change happens. So I'm still running this one, but the next meeting, to jump into the point 9, will be run by Dan. The one in December. All right. But thanks for the question.
Just in case there have been elections where, people have refused to step down, that's come up recently.
If suddenly it's a massive write-ins, right? Yeah. Okay. Roll call. Let's run down this list here. Is Giuseppe here? I do not see Giuseppe. Is Tate here yet? I do see Tate. Great.
Yes. Yes. Hello.
And Tom. Yep. Great. Thomas Fasadi, I see. Eric Northup or Shankaran? Not yet. Hey, how about Kfir or Catalan? Not yet. Okay. Howard, I thought I saw you here. Howard, yep. Howard, I see you here. Dan's here, I'm here, and Lily's here. So that takes us to 6. And so we do have quorum. Okay, Kurt, you want to give your usual blurb here?
It helps if I unmute. Yes, please join the Etherpad. The link is here. Actually, I posted it in chat as well. And mark your attendance and help me take minutes. I'm actually leaving an hour into the meeting, and I will finish up the minutes from the recording. So I would certainly appreciate the help if you all could jump in and help make the minutes more accurate.
Great, thanks. All right, since we have quorum, we do have a set of minutes to approve here. Approval of minutes. Let me pull that one up. All right, here's a set of minutes. You can see I've already reviewed them, and so I'm just going to pull them up on the screen in this mode here. I'm not going to go through them. I'm just going to display them on the screen here and say, so you can remind who all was here. And let's see, it's about that long. And so is there anybody that's a voting member that needs to delay the vote, that needs more time? Are people okay with me calling the vote? If I hear nothing, then is there anyone that has amendments to these minutes, whether you're voting or not? Anyone that has an amendment to these minutes? That's basically asking for a no vote or a request for somebody else to vote no. All right, then out of the voting members, is there anybody that would vote no or vote abstain of the voting members? And again, here's who was the voting members who were present last time. Going once, going twice. If nobody votes no or abstain out of the voting members, I'll assume that all of the other people with the pluses here, or all the people that's present here, then the voting members vote yes, and the minutes are approved. Thank you all. All right, action item review. Let's start at the top here. Oops. I'm going to skip this first one only because the questions for Aquam, and Aquam is later on the agenda, so we can just cover that during that one, during the agenda item later. So Kurt, you can have the next set of things here.
Okay, let's see here. Oh, messaging service. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look into that or the next one. But yeah, that is on my radar. I did have another discussion about the community architect and refined that a bit. We need to have a discussion to define, actually sit down and define the job responsibilities. I believe there was development in the governing board meeting yesterday and have not been able to talk to Helen about that. But yeah, I will continue working on that.
Yeah, if it would be helpful, very happy for the NOx projects, Nick, to have a chat about how his role developed and what he's doing. He's been very, very successful for us, and if that would be helpful to have that conversation, I'm sure that he'd be very happy to have a chat with you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I don't see how it could hurt at all.
Perfect.
I think if we get the more information and the more refined the more crisp we can make the job responsibilities, the better.
Sorry, Nick, to put things on your plate, but I was pretty sure you'd be cool.
Sounds good. Yeah, it would be a pleasure. Thank you.
Let's see. We did find out who the investigator was, and I just need to follow up for future tech talks. And I think that takes us to, let's see, I don't think Stefano's on, is he?
No. Although he's welcome.
Has he, well, Lily, has he contacted Keystone, do you know? Okay. Did we lose Lily?
Lily still shows us here and with audio.
Sometimes Lily shows up on text because of audio problems.
That's true.
Oh, okay.
She says, "Oh no, you
Okay.
can't hear me."
That answers that question.
No, we can't.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, great. Yes, that connection was made. They have each other's emails, Stefano and Dial of Keystone, and I think they were about to have a conversation, and I'm not sure I'm on that thread, but they have connected.
Excellent.
Awesome. We'll consider that one done then. Okay, and then Dan.
Yeah, no, I haven't started that yet.
Okay, got it. There was one other action item, but we'll get to that on the white paper one. And so I'm going through that now. All right, unless there's any other questions on those, we'll go on. All right, Thomas Vasati, you want to tell us about the IETF hackathon that
I thought we moved this around.
the hackathon report? Let me check. You are right, we did.
Sorry.
Let's go to the white paper. Okay, so so I said there was one other action item, and let
Sorry,
me cover that
Thomas.
now. No, we'll get to you later. Sorry, Thomas. All right, so I just wanted to observe. So we had the board meeting yesterday, and to follow up on the definition change. The definition was changed in a couple places. It was the one place when I checked yesterday had not yet been changed was this one. Here, what is confidential computing? And you can say the word.
And it is now changed.
Ah, okay. So this happened just within the last 24 hours. Okay, excellent. So that action item is now done. The other places that it was changed, which I think still needs an action item, is if we look in our white papers here. So you see the outreach white paper and the TAC white paper. So let's just look at ours here. And you will see that the definition has been changed. We go down. As soon as it populates here. Okay. Let's zoom in. And let's see. Confidential. Whoops. Computing. No, performing is. There it is. So there's the word attest. There's the definition. So this one's already been updated. This is awesome. What hasn't been updated is here you can see that this says that this last was touched in September 28th for errata, and the version number is still, and the date on it is there. And so what Kurt, what I would like to see them do, and this is the same as if we were to look in the outreach white paper, you'll see the same thing, is we need to bump the date and the version number and add the line into the version control system in both white papers.
Okay.
So if you can add that into the list of pending action items for LF Creative. But otherwise, we appreciate them doing a rapid job of actually updating the definitions, which is what the actual text is all good now. So thank them for that.
Will do.
Okay, so that was the last action item, was to update the white papers. And so that's mostly done. All right, back to the slides. Okay, so now we go to the common terminology, and there's the document here. Okay, so the two things that are on here, if we look at issues here, we recently merged a pull request that I think addressed an issue, but we didn't close the issue. And so that's this one here. So I want to look at that one, and I want to look at, I thought this one here. No, not that one. Did we already have one from Mike, or was that one already resolved? Maybe I thought we had something that, oh, it was in the pull request, not the issues.
Yeah.
There it is, that one. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, these are the two. Okay, so this one was, as your reminder, this was the discussion. Maybe add a better term than hosting environment and do the following in the next pull request. For each TE instance, the hosting environment may or may not be running inside some TE instance. The hosting environment is a scaffolding outside. And Mark recommends a section before this one explaining what a TE instance is and putting this there around line 15. All right. So the notion that the packaging granularity could be smaller than a TCP. We previously reviewed and approved this. I don't think you were there in the meeting, Mike, but in two different meetings, we reviewed this. We did some edits, and then we merged it. And so here is that text for that. This is the main addition. Here is this text right here. And the question is this sufficient to close the issue? Because the part that we didn't explicitly address is the notion of a TE instance is not really defined per se, other than it's kind of used in this text, and it may be clear enough in context. And so that's the question: is do we consider this sufficient that the need to define a TE instance is now gone, or should the issue still be open with a need for another pull request in addition to this one?
Okay, let me just read this quickly, if I may.
Yep, I will pause for a second here and let people read.
I think that's fine. I'd make one suggestion, which is on line 33. I would change it to use of the term inverted commas confidential implies. Do you see what I mean? There we go. I think that. I think that's
so
just a bit clearer.
Yeah, since this one's already merged, we'll put this in a separate.
Sure. I don't think that's a major issue, but I think that's sufficient. The rest of it, well done, everyone. I had seen versions of this, but as you say, I wasn't in the final one. I think so. Thank you so much.
I will take an action item to file a pull request. It's a one-word change here, which is to put confidential in quotes right there. But other than that, are we agreed that this issue is now closable?
I see Ben's hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Ben.
Okay, I might be off. I apologize. I had one, I was just looking at, I think it was like learn line 35. I think it's slightly different, but I had a question about, it was talking about something and I gave an example of GPU. I'm on the wrong spot. Okay, I think it's down a little bit. Yeah, 35, there you go.
47?
47, yes, okay. I was wondering if we wanted to make that more generic than just saying a GPU. And
It does say such as.
This is an example, right? Other examples would be a network
like an
offload
IPU,
card.
DPU, maybe.
Yeah, there's plenty of other examples. GPU is just one that many humans actually can recognize that acronym, but you could say, smart NICs, you could say, FPGAs, you can say, whatever. So
I'm just saying that I guess everybody would include other processing units such as those. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The intent is this is just a single example of a potentially large set.
Yeah, and it didn't originally say that. It's just it used to say just CPU, so that we're very careful actually, Ben, to extend that.
Did you have something specific in mind, Ben, that you thought wasn't reflected?
I mean, the example I was specifically thinking of IPU, DPUs.
Sorry, DPU, is that what you said?
IPUs and DPUs, yes.
Okay.
What's an IPU?
It's the Intel version of a DPU.
So what? An Intel version of a DPU?
Yeah, basically a super smart NIC.
Okay.
And
let's just use such as would be my
both officially accepted terms for very smart NICs. So.
Okay. I heard, Mike, your comment there. Anybody else need a change to this text here? Given it's such as. But yes, smart NICs is one of the other examples that we talked about, but didn't think it was useful or necessary, I should say, to have a long list of examples. All right, so we ask one more time. Anybody object to go ahead and closing this now that we've addressed that? We still want the pull request to add that one, but that's just a editorial clarification. There's no objections then.
I think you want that on. Do you want that on the issue instead of the poll, or maybe you are?
This is the issue here.
I bet.
Okay. All right. So Kirk, if you can make sure there's an action item on me to do the pull request, so I don't forget this one right here. Hopefully it'll be done before the next meeting, but just make sure that's in the minutes. So.
If it's not done before the next meeting, it becomes Dan's problem, right?
No. It means Dan can assign it to me.
Oh, yeah, that's even more dangerous.
Once you're the chair, you can twist people's arms and get them to do work and say, Dan, would you please do this? But after that, I can't.
I know that. Yes.
Yes. I often play a trick where I try to get you to sign up to do work, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Right.
So I try to.
All right, so let's go to our last pull request that is related to the terminology white paper, and that's Mike's here, for which we had some discussion between Mike and Dan here. So just to refresh your memory, I'm going to go down and you can see some up arrows with some typos and stuff in there. All right. So this is actually what led this part of the discussion is what led us to adding that word attested in there. So that part is kind of now done. Because you can see this is the old quote, right, which is missing the word attested in here. And so we've already updated this text here, right? That was what that other discussion was.
So where's that being updated?
If we go back into the white paper.
Oh, yeah, and okay. But
Here.
Okay, fine. So it's made it there. Okay, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
got it.
if you rebase your pull request, then you'll see that the
Okay, fine. Yeah, got it. Sorry. Carry on.
And let's see, is the capitalization? Yeah, you can see the capitalization might still apply right there. You're suggesting we capitalize that term here.
Yeah.
But okay.
Are
All
we
right, now we're
generally
getting into this one.
prioritizing confidential computing? Is that what we want to do?
That's the question.
So I
Um,
think that the CCC generally does. If you look at the outreach usage, whether we have whether there's a style in it or not, I don't know. But I think we've been trying to, because it makes it, without trademarking, it still makes it. There we go. Yeah, it makes it good. Although you could say that that's not a definition quote. That's actually an asking what the question is. I think we should be.
I agree. And when I write stuff, I try to capitalize confidential computing. And I'd also capitalize confidential containers as well.
So then, Ben, do you want to take a note back to outreach that the outreach white paper itself is inconsistent and decide what you want to do about that?
I will take it as a thing that we need to review it for grammar. As I found a grammar error the other day too, as well as this. Thank you.
I suspect the TAC white paper isn't any better, but let's quick check. Okay, capitalized.
Honestly, if I was
yeah,
involved with
better.
this,
Yeah,
it's not any better.
It's about any better, meaning it's both ways in our white paper too.
Should
Yeah.
outreach take this upon itself to work on the capitalization and grammar and review of both white papers?
Thank you for volunteering. I would say yes.
Okay. If I'm doing one, I'm also do both, right? So
Exactly.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that begs a question that I meant to bring up when you were covering the need to bump the versions on those papers.
Mhm.
I don't know where the source ended up.
LF Creative. Kurt, do you know?
Did this
It-
not come out of a
This is
GitHub
originally a
doc?
Google Doc.
Oh, it was originally a Google Doc. I couldn't remember.
And then it went to LF Creative, and now I don't think we have access to the source.
I think that's right. Oh,
Yeah.
We only have access to our original Google Doc that we handed off to them. That's right.
I wonder if we could get them to re-export it into Markdown and get it into our governance repo.
I think that's a question for Kurt, who's on mute.
I don't know what tooling software they use to actually do the formatting of things. Do you know, Kurt?
Still on mute.
27 years ago, I worked for a publishing house, and it's got no better, frankly, moving between formats.
Mhm.
Oh, dear.
Otherwise, Dan, since these are you two comments, I will let you drive the discussion on these two between you and Mike. So,
Dave, I'll just take that offline through
Okay.
the outreach, and I'll
Okay,
work
great.
on that one.
okay,
Thanks.
because it may be just a note to LF Creating and having them do it. If it's just, consistency capitalization, then maybe outreach doesn't need to do it, but I'll let you work that out with LF Creative.
Yeah,
So,
you can just add that as a task on your task list of things.
awesome. All right.
So, yeah, let's look at these. Which one do you want to do first, Dan?
May as well start with the one that's up. So I think that the diff ended up being difficult to track to begin with.
I'm going to see if you can actually see your comments, Dan, in context here. I don't remember if it gets.
Yeah, that would probably be easier.
Let's see if it shows comments here. No, it doesn't. I can only do it in this view. Okay. Trying to get back to wherever that was. Okay, that's the second one. Is it that one?
It was above that. Oh, there's two places.
Okay, here's the okay. It looks like they were out of order in terms of how they appeared on the other ways. This is
Yeah.
one page.
one thing is that somehow with the reformatting, it looks like all 10 of those lines changed in some way from like line 90 to line 99 in the original diff. So it just sort of hard to track. But one of the things that had stuck out when we looked at this in September was you had chosen in that first line, attestation may be used to support stateless communication. You'd chosen attestation may be used as additional information to support stateless communication.
So the comment is?
Well, I'm trying to understand. It was a question to you. What were you trying to convey?
If I could remember, it'd be helpful. Okay, I have but now that we've added the word attestation to the definition, there's also a danger here that this might suggest that you might want to add attestation a lot to what you're doing anyway. That's not what this means. This means that that part of what attestation may be used for is this thing. I'm not sure that needs disambiguation if everyone agrees that that is clear, but let's just I'm not sure that the words. I think part of the problem, Dave, if I remember right, was what we meant by attestation, right? Because attestation in the rats world is meaning one thing. What I was talking about was the process of attestation. Oh no, I was trying to reflect. Oh, I can't remember. This is the problem. I think that partly around what we mean by the word attestation, really, because when I talk about attestation, I mean the results of the process, which includes a measurement. So it's the measurement and the validation. Now, if you just mean the measurement, then this text is useful, I think.
That would be, if I understand what you said, that would be the way
Yes,
that rats would,
that.
Attestation results as opposed to evidence, meaning it's the validation of it, regardless of
Yes.
whether it was measurements plus policy, measurements plus policy plus endorsements, some other combination, reference values,
Yep,
etc.
that disambiguates, and I'm very happy with that.
Okay.
I like
if that
that
makes
too.
sense.
It's a good addition.
Okay, thank you, Dave. See how useful it is now that he's.
Are you okay with me committing this into your pull request? Meaning if that's
yes.
a friendly amendment, okay, then I will.
Yes,
then
I am. Thank you.
Then it will just update that in. Okay.
What else do we got?
Where did it go? I think it jumped. It was somewhere. Oh, it's because it switched into the. No. I'm trying to find where is that comment now. It was down in there at the bottom someplace. Huh. Now it's made the rest of Dan's comment disappear out of this view. Darn.
I do have one question on it as we look for it.
Yep.
Attestation results I'm comfortable talking about in the IETF context. We did keep it lowercase here, so it can be mapped, but we've introduced it as another term elsewhere in this document. Does it matter? I prefer to just sort of leave it as it is because it's lowercase, but certainly the reference to other document terminology.
Was this talking about confidential computing? I didn't catch the reference.
Well, there it is. Attestation results.
Okay, I found how to make it appear. I'm just going to go back to the view that we were on before. Now that it should appear.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I couldn't hear all of what you said. I didn't catch the reference. You said something is capitalized, I thought. Was that confidential computing?
No. The question is, we've added attestation results. Did we talk about attestation results anywhere else in this document?
No.
Dave and I definitely knows what this means, but, and it's accurate in the IETF term, I don't think we want to make the connection to the IETF document because it would make it more complex. but we have to be aware that we're using a term that's capitalized in the IETF and lowercase here without further reference.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's, I think that it is clear what it means here, but we don't need to make it an IETF term. So keep it lowercase would be my preference.
So right now, Eric, I'm just observing that both the before and after versions say interested readers are encouraged to read, Brett's architecture. And so they're saying for more information, you can see that one anyway.
All right. All right, so I think we keep it lowercase and then they can figure out what it means. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure we closed on that.
Yeah, no, good call.
Okay, so now that is merged, it still has the line breaks are changed, right? You can see datagram or computational result is still up there. So some of these lines show as diff when they're not. But is there anything else in this text that you can spot down that's worth discussing?
Yeah, so it looks like you added the word partial, and partial or complete TCB. And I don't know what that is intended to do.
So here, complete was there. And so the and partial or just partial or was added compared to up here.
Yeah. So just to go back in time, like 3 or 4 months, the original text mentioned these facets, and we realized that we would get into redefining all the things that are in the IETF documents. So I took that list and put it into the new text, which then you have further altered. So we went from like a bullet list or something to this list in a sentence. And now you were suggesting to change complete TCB to partial or complete TCB.
Yeah, okay. So I think where I was going here with is that there are various ways of introducing a building a TCB, and one of them is measurement. So, for instance, the NARCS approach is you measure the runtime, but you may decide to load other parts of the TCB based on that measurement and supported by things like cryptographic hashes. So it's not the only way. So creating a TCB, restate that. Attestation is not the only way of establishing a TCB, a complete TCB.
Let me give an example where it might be partial, although my personal preference is to delete the words partial or complete and just say NTCB measurement. But let's say that you have
agreed.
After attestation, you then load code. So like you dynamically deploy code,
which is what we do in
exactly. And so the attestation happened before that point. So what you've attested is the part of the TCB that was before the deployment, because once you deploy some other code, that code becomes part of your TCB. And so in that sense, it's partial. But I think that's too detailed of a discussion to get into here, and that's why I would prefer to just remove the words partial or complete. Like so. Any objections? I added into Mike's pull request, right? So we still have to try to see if we can merge the pull request, but if that's okay with you, Mike, since this is your proposal.
It is.
Okay. All right, now, unfortunately, I think it's going to resolve it, and I have to go back to just see it in context. And yeah, so that made that, was there, I don't know if there was some other wording change in that one, Dan, so I'm going to go back and unresolve it again. Okay, there's that text that we just did. And of course, Mike added a paragraph break right in here, right? So some of the text up here continues on down below here. collapse that one. Okay. People stare at this text right here. Is there any other things in this one that we need to talk about from the before and after?
Yeah, I'm just going to say it, but we can ignore if we want to. I think there is a possible danger in saying support best practices for attestation, where those best practices are not defined anywhere else, and we kind of just throw these in and say we think they're best practices, but where's who's saying they're best practices? Now, I don't have a huge problem with it, but I just want to raise it that it could be a stick used to beat us in the future.
My opinion, personally, as an individual, is okay for now. If there's an issue here, then it's something that the TAC can either create best practices or point to industry best practices in the future and update the white paper if we need it.
Fine, I like that approach. That's fine.
But since you mentioned that, so we are pointing to the RATS links. If there are things that are not covered as best practices, that might be good fodder for the attestation SIG. So if you need to produce better best practices thing.
And I think that's what this paragraph says, right? A full description of attestation best practices outside the scope of this document, right? And it points to the RATS architecture and it points to the CCC attestation SIG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool.
I'd add one more thing to it. If somebody wants to ask about best practices, we're in a very strong place to dive deeper into why these are good. And so I do think that actually, if people poke at it, it's only improved our position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, good.
All right. So I'm going to scroll up because you had one other comment, Dan. And so if we're done staring at this one for a little bit, I'm going to scroll up to the other one. Since I got a thumbs up, let's just commit that one to collapse it. Fit stuff on the screen. All right. This one is now resolved once it's rebased. So I'm going to click resolve on that one just to make it easier for me to find stuff. All right. Oh no. Where'd the other one go? Thought you had one other comment.
Yep. I think it's down lower in the document.
That one. That one, the partial or complete.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking for a comment by Dan that may have gotten inadvertently resolved. Not that one. I think it's this one right here, right?
Yeah.
Line 79. All right, let's see if I can find this one in the other. Okay, it's not resolved, so it should be line 79. All right, here we go.
Okay, so I don't think we need to get some correct, but I do think it's worth me going.
So the idea here was that in some other context, and I won't attribute the quote correctly, but it was something like every authentication, every use of authentication is an opportunity for attestation.
That's a quote from me, and I'll give you the correct text because this was originally called the Thaler conjecture. This happened in the meeting that then led to the RATS working group. The hypothesis then was that so the question that came up in the meeting, what is the scenario for attestation? And I said, every authentication scenario is an attestation scenario, is the hypothesis. And so far it's been proven correct. So anyway.
Perfect. And thank you for, I will try to properly that in the future. Thaler conjecture. So I wanted to bring the Thaler conjecture. The audience for this document is people who are going to consume and try to apply trusted or try to apply confidential computing. And so the utility of this for them is to consider it in authentication. So I don't want to lose those examples because it makes the document potentially less useful for them.
I happen to agree with Dan on this one, since not because he quoted me, but
Hey, let me read
because he
what
was
I
thinking along
tried
the same lines. So
to change. There's also a missing word in my suggestion. Or is it a typo? Okay, so this isn't a hill I'm going to die on, but the reason I think I changed it was because I think few enough people understand authentication and authorization, and trying to muddy the waters of what attestation is by using ill understood terms in the first place just felt dangerous.
So I agree with Dan that I would like to keep the 79 through 83. 84 is something I would be fine with replacing the green text with. That's my opinion.
Okay, what does that look like?
Sorry. Actually, since this phrase right here, we'd have to update it in a lot of ones, because that's where you take that and then elide the rest.
Okay, sold.
Okay, so let's see if we can do some dynamic edits here.
Because GitHub's really designed for that.
Yeah, so we're going to take this and we're going to take. We have to highlight on a green line there. Okay, so let's put the red text back in to edit. And then this blank line and those two. Okay, and then we need a new entry phrase here. And we'll look at it this way and see what it looks like so far. This, all right.
Can we move the contraction of theirs to there is, please, just to formalize it a little bit.
Okay, so let's add that one. If you're okay with me merging this in there, just so we can see them together.
And if we talk about T instances, so let's talk about T instance as well. If people are happy with that, authenticate T instance. And yes, there we go.
Mike, you okay with me updating the pull request?
I am, if everyone else is, if Dan is.
Well, I wanted people to actually review the updated pull request.
Oh yeah, okay, let's
so
do
we
that.
can then edit it
Yeah,
again.
that's fine. Yeah, that's
but since this is your pull request, I just wanted.
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
I'm collaborating your proposal. So.
There's only something I proposed because you made me do it in the first place, so it's entirely you're to blame as well.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know how this works.
What's going on here? I thought I was committed. Let's see what it did here. This line 79. Okay, here we go. It didn't keep. Not sure it did it right. It should. No, it didn't do it right. It didn't actually commit. All right, try it again. It seems to have lost it or hung or something. So see how fast I can do the same thing again.
And there is as well.
Thank you. Back to 79. Okay, there we go.
Yep, love it.
All right, back to you, Dan, as to
Okay,
anything
hang
else
on.
you wanted to comment in this
So,
text.
well, there is often desire to authenticate.
Just catching on my chat here.
Okay, so then the next thing is original lines 86 and 87 and proposed lines 88 and 89. That was the bit where we changed authentication to assurances. And that was the bit where I wanted to hang on to authentication. I don't disagree with assurances. It just seemed like, well, then assurances was a softer term.
I think softer is appropriate here. Sure, I mean, we're only ever able to give a belief based on the evidence.
Right, but it then breaks the points from the lines above, because the idea is that normally when you do a TLS connection, you are authenticating by rote of the public key, and considering that a form of evidence, you are going to authenticate that server. And here we're able to authenticate a more precise part of execution. We're authenticating the TEE, which is either an application TEE or a VM TEE. So we're authenticating them based on their measurement and the hardware keys and all that sort of thing.
It's a stronger level of assurance than mere authentication, than classic authentication.
I think you always authenticate to someone, and this is not, that isn't the case here.
Well, I think RATLS shows that it is exactly the case.
Okay, Hill, I don't care. I can live with it. So by Hill, I mean one I'm not going to die on. Sorry, just
Meaning you're okay with keeping the red text?
Yeah.
Eric, you spoke up. Do you have any views on this one?
I'm not willing to fight. I mean, I think that the concept is there. It does. I don't think it'll really matter in the long run.
I personally don't have an opinion because I think it is already clear enough in the top one, regardless of whether it's red or green. I personally would have read it the same, but I don't know how others read it. So that's why I'm trying to go with what other people think. Because if we change it back to make it go away, it would be
And I take your points, Dave. Sorry, Dan, about the importance of the readership here. This is not an academic text, and we do want people to be able to use it. And I think that's a point as well.
what about the and or?
I don't remember what the line is, and or the virtual.
It used to say or, and might change to the and or.
The virtual firmware used to launch the VM.
Yeah, I think and or is fine.
Okay. Okay, so if people are okay with keeping the red text, then I'm going to commit this one. Line 89, and so now it looks like this, with the only change there is the and.
Yep.
Yeah, technically
Okay.
there's some white space there at the end of the
If you want me to delete it, I can delete it.
either way, I'm sad to say for Mike that he will need to rebase this. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to do that. I just do not have the time. or energy to do that at the moment, I'm afraid.
So I can see if it actually has conflicts, because it may be that the GitHub button will do it. Let's just check and see if there's conflicts. There may very well
Hope
be.
that it will. The last time I tried to merge something into here, though, I had to manually rebase because
There
it didn't deal with other changes to this document.
Looks like it is a fairly simple thing, I hope. Let's just see how difficult this looks to merge. Because the word attested was in here. What else changed in the bottom one? Comma. Oxford, comma. Hi, Mike.
No, take it out. Kill, die. These are the hills. These are the hills, everybody. There are times and places for Oxford commas, and almost nowhere is where they are. But
commas save lives.
Philistines.
Right? You guys know the commas save lives, right? the classic meme about let's eat comma grammar.
Yeah. But you need it there. You don't need it here. So when I said I used to work for a publishing house, my first job out of university was with Cambridge University Press, who have dogmatic theological views about Oxford commas for the reasons you'd expect. So that is part of the reason I'm.
I think the bottom one is actually the correct one, but I was trying to see the full thing with wrap because I don't know how to get to it. Here's the full one with wrap.
So while we're on pet peeves, having markdown documents without line breaks every roughly 100 characters or at a sentence break.
Yes, but the problem is exactly the problem we've just had, which is when you're doing edits, it thinks that you've created many more changes than you actually have. If you have it in a single, I don't have a good answer to it, but that's the reason that it's a nightmare.
Yeah, so if we have line breaks roughly at a sentence or 100 characters, then when we make changes, you don't necessarily ripple the. Sure.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
And so here we think it should be capitalized. Okay, I'm just trying to. And is that the end of this one? Is a period there? Okay. All right, so I think the bottom one is now correct because that's the one that has the, otherwise they're the same except for the phrase at the bottom, so we can resolve that one. Are people okay with me leaving new line breaks in there, so given that we were just complaining about it?
Yeah.
Okay, because it will show up as, so I'm just trying to compare. So this one, confidential computing, okay. Confidential computing. Trying to make them match, right? Okay. This is a long paragraph, apparently. Sorry you have to watch me do this, but I would rather be done with this.
All sorts of fun. We love it.
My informal goal is to try to have this white paper be done while I'm still chair.
I love that.
Okay, in which case I've got 15 more changes I want to make, really important ones.
No, you don't.
No,
all right, everything, these now look the same to me, so I will just delete one of these now that we've made changes here. Hopefully those should be identical. Other than, we have things like this, and so that's part of Ben's item to. But we might as well stop introducing new ones, right? Okay, mark is resolved for conflicts. Next.
I don't know why. I don't think Ben's got a day job or anything, right?
You know what? Given that somebody has to drop in like 5 minutes here. You don't have to watch me do this. I will keep resolving these conflicts off.
I need to go. Thank you so much, Dave. If you need anything specific, get in touch.
I would love to have you stick around for 5 minutes, or maybe 3.
Okay, I can. Was this the sub bullet?
I wanted to tee off this topic here. I expect this might be a long topic for the TAC in future meetings that maybe somebody else would be chairing, but I at least wanted to introduce what the topic was while we're still have terminology fresh in our minds. Okay, so I'll at least state the problem. We don't have to discuss it now. We can just have the discussion in future meetings here, but I at least wanted to state the problem here. Let me give you the example from IEC 62443, right? This is an ISO standard for industrial IoT security. Okay, and so in critical infrastructure, you've had lots of attacks that have made the news all over the place with power plants and so on. The attacks compromise plants that are certified at the highest level of security in IEC 62443. So what's the problem? The problem is that the ISO standard does not actually require things like hardware roots of trust and attestation and so on. So once you have malware on it, all bets are off and they get compromised, right? And so the gap obviously is that they don't actually reference things that the CCC would want them to reference, right? NIST IR 8259 does, because we provided feedback shortly after the CCC was formed, and they put stuff into recommendations, not requirements, because it wasn't ubiquitous across the industry yet. And so as other comparables in other industries create requirements or at least definitions for what is secure, then techniques vary across the industry in terms of how things assert conformance to that. So some examples, and these are kind of comparing apples and oranges, is kind of a survey of different topics to lead into the discussion here. There are things that just use vendor self-assertion. We are currently in this category. The problem with that is we have other major vendors that use the term in a way that's not consistent with our term, right? And so as a result, if you think about a customer trying to decide between, they both say that they're confidential computing, and how do you know which is the better one, right? Which is the same problem, by the way, with 62443, right? Some say we're IEC 62443, some they say that we're 62443, some are more secure than others. How do you differentiate? Same problem. Other things that other industries have gone and dealt with to do with that is some notion of certification, but not necessarily by the body that creates the requirements. And so here's 3 other examples in the industry. Open Connectivity Foundation is primarily consumer IoT. They write documents that says, here's a set of requirements, but they also fund a lab that goes and certifies things against those requirements. And so, I mean, there's an external vendor that's contracted by OCF that somebody can submit things to, and that lab will generate the stamp of that lab that says that you comply. So in that sense, it's sort of like, maybe Underwriter Labs or something, so you can get that stamp. Okay? But this is one that's paid for by the OCF. Another example is the IPv6 ready logo, where IETF generates the requirements, but there is no, IETF is not affiliated with any lab or whatever, it just generates requirements. However, there are other labs that then pick it up as their business model that says, we're going to certify stuff. And since you've written the requirements, they create test suites. And so the University of New Hampshire is one of those test lab vendors that has a lab associated with that university, and they do certification for the IPv6 ready. So they have an actual logo that's not IETF affiliated, but it's using the IETF generated requirements. And then the last example that I know of is DISA and NIST, are US things that have sets of requirements, just like NIST is. And so that's one that generates requirements, but there's no body. And so that's why it's kind of apples and oranges. It kind of overlaps with some of these other ones. So DISA, for example, references a lot of the same requirements as IETF generated requirements here. And so the external lab certification for IPv6 ready can be used to meet the DISA requirements for IPv6, for example. Okay? And so I wanted to tee off in the future, get people to start thinking about, but not necessarily the discussion now, is what approach should the CCC use, given that there are misuses of confidential computing out there and claims of people that are confidential computing that we would say are definitely not. What can we do about this? And again, I want people to think about this for future meetings. And so I at least want to get this in your head, Mike, because I know you'll have opinions and we don't have time to discuss it now, but I want you to be thinking about it by the time we can discuss it.
And I think there's something which is much closer to home, which is also relevant to this, which is our own use of stuff. So when we talk about, for instance, whenever something is being done under the aegis of the CCC, like writing a Wikipedia article, then we should ensure that that follows the definitions put forward by the TAC, because text was proposed, which definitely didn't do that. I know that this is being re-kicked off for complicated reasons, but I think we need to insist on that as the TAC. Okay. But I think you're quite right. This is really interesting and complex topic, in which we're not going to manage to get done today.
No, this is the teaser to make people think about it for future meetings. Okay, so with this we can go on. That was my blurb.
I'm going to drop. Really appreciate it, and thanks for doing stuff in my time zone. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, so I'm going to go
And
back to the agenda.
congratulations, Dave, and thank you, and congratulations, Dan, and all those
Yeah.
sorts of things.
Okay,
Thanks.
so unless there's anything else on common terminology, I want to time box this one since it's now 8 o'clock, so we have time to get through the other things. And I'm going to go to Thomas Vasari to give us the hackathon report.
Okay. Right. The hackathon was brilliant. It never betrays expectations. So it was very useful and fun indeed. Basically, you sit in a big room filled with fellow hackers in this high bandwidth, low latency, high energy environment. And what you do is you code and discuss and drink and eat for 2 days in a row, and you are completely taken care of by the hackathon sponsor. And that the food, Dave can confirm this, it was quite delicious this time. And then on Sunday afternoon, the thing shuts down and you present shortly what you did, but what was the plan and what you achieved during this day and a half. And in particular, we were there with the Verizon team, and we have worked on an end-to-end demo of the attested TLS pack that we are prototyping in the attestation SIG. So it was very CCC relevant, and we made really good progress in terms of both groundwork and as well as nailing down the interfaces between the components, which include 3 major blocks for us: and Embed TLS, Verizon, and Parsec. We were sitting alongside our TEEP and SCID friends in a sort of conglomerate, a confidential computing cluster, but we were not a closed crowd, right? We were, having CCC stickers to hand out was great as a pretext to start conversations with random people. And thanks, Kurt, for sending them in time to me, because they were very useful. And then on Monday we had the hackathon happy hour. So it was the 3rd day that the activity spanned 3 days basically, which is a way to socialize the hackathon activity with the wider ITF crew that tends to be a superset of the hackathon crew. And it was once again super good. And how it works is that you have basically a bunch of one-to-ones with interested or otherwise just curious people. And we made some CCC dissemination evangelism too in passing, and that was good. And by the way, we managed to interest someone so much that he is now going to be a co-author of the TLS spec. So success. What to say? It's good. I can't stress enough how good that kind of activity is, and I highly recommend this to basically everyone, in particular to CCC projects that may have even a slight intersection with IETF standardization. And especially if you plan to bring your work to standardization, the hackathon is really the gateway to show the community that you are really engaged. And because running code is at the core of the organization ethos, so basically, being there makes you sort of look good, and sort of enhances your chances to be successful later on in the process. It's also a fabulous device in terms of cross-pollination. So you have a great chance to make connections and knowing people that are usually super knowledgeable in their own area, and not seldom fun too. So, for projects, we are going to have budget allocated for this kind of activity. So please consider that as an option. So next one is in Japan. So it may be a bit too far in general, but for North Americans, the July meeting is going to be in San Francisco, which might be easier for you. So I think this is sort of roughly what I wanted to say. If you have any question, please fire.
And I will observe that the attested TLS discussion was started in the RATS working group, which I thought was a great kickoff, and there was lots of I think positive support for having that discussion be in RATS. And so thanks to those in the attestation SIG that helped to prepare and present that. So
yeah.
Let's see. Hannes, you are also there. Anything else you wanted to add about the hackathon that's relevant to CCC?
No, I think Thomas covered it quite well. I'm a big fan of sitting together and do some hacking, specifically if the people whose software you use sit basically next to you, so you can just ask them if you have some doubts or some questions. So that was extremely productive for me.
Yeah, same here. Okay.
Thomas, you mentioned you were able to hash some things out between 3 components. And I think you said embed TLS Verizon, and what was the third?
The third one was Parsec.
Parsec.
Parsec is a CNCF project. Makes this abstraction or the root of trust of the platform.
Okay. Any other questions for Thomas or about the IETF hackathon in general? I would love to encourage any other relevant projects to be able to attend such hackathons in the future.
Absolutely.
Now that we have a budget, I'll talk about when we get to that slide here. All right. Anything else on that one? Let's just make sure I still have stuff in the right order. Oclam annual report, I think, is up next. And so, Tate, are you here and are you the one that's giving the Oclam report?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. If you have stuff to share, I'm happy to stop sharing and let you take over.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to make this brief.
Thank you for staying so late.
For sure.
So can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. This is Tate. I represent the Oclam project to give this annual report. If you are not familiar with Oclam, this is a one-page summary. Oclam is a memory-safe multi-process library for SJS. It has a friendly user interface. You just need 3 simple commands to run application inside SJS. We have made tremendous efforts to make it as compatible as Linux. And Oclam is the first and still the first, still the only LibreOS written in Rust. So Oclam is relatively more safe than other LibreOS written in C. And it's a CCC project. It has been developing for 3 years and we have released for 40 versions. I've gone through some of the major achievements of the Oclam project in 2022. The first one is that some of the GitHub metrics. One of the most important metric I think is that we have reached the milestone of hitting 1,000 GitHub stars. I think this is something that we can celebrate. And there are now a total of 40 contributors, and the project is under active development, as you can see the commit history. The second is that as the project gets more mature, we have enabling more and more popular and large complex applications. Some of them are listed in this slide. And the third one is that so we have a separate project called SwarmDisk. It has been integrated into Oclam to provide a very fast file I/O, secure and fast file I/O for Oclam. SwarmDisk is a log structured secure block device. We make it a log structured because we find out that the logging is not only more friendly to storage media, this is a well-known fact, but also but it's also important to security protection because for TE we have very strong adversary, and we find that it's much easier to protect an append-only log than you protect random update file. So this is why we adopt this log structure approach. This is SwarmDisk. Is now sit beneath the Oclam's file system and above the untrusted host block device, which is just a regular file on Linux. So this sworn disk is it takes all plain text I/O requests and do whatever it needed to do encryption and other security measures, and write encrypted and MAC protected IOs to the untrusted host block device, so that we have with sworn disk we have uh, uh, just regular file system, no encryption in file system. Yeah. And this log structure approach makes the IO much faster. As you can see, this is the core idea that we use logging as 3 different levels. The first is that every data blocks, every encrypted data blocks are written out of place in a log manner. And so with this this log manner makes it faster to write on the disk, and more importantly, it simplifies how we do crash consistency, because so this is the out of place write. We don't need to keep a copy of the changed data blocks in a journal. And to track which logic blocks are in which position in the data log, we introduce a secure index. The secure index is based on log structure tree. LSM tree is classic technique in storage, but we need to make the LSM tree secure. And so the LSM tree is at a very high level, consists of multiple levels of log. So so as the index is based on logs, we can protect it more efficiently. And the last one is we have a secure journal. Now this journal ensures the consistency, durability, and also the security of all the index updates. To put the log structure in perspective, here is the traditional approach, which is based on in-place updates protected by Merkle hash tree. As you can see, so every data block are protected by Merkle hash tree nodes. And so in this traditional approach, if you update randomly write one data block, it will trigger a cascade case of updates in the Merkle hash tree nodes. So and you have to write down all the updates nodes in a secure journal, so that if anything, if any crash happens, you can recover all the changed blocks to the previous state. So so you can see the in the log structure approach, the shaded area, which is the part of the disk that you have to update, is much smaller than the traditional approach. So this log structure approach makes soreness much faster, and also makes it also a lot more faster for fail IO. And I've skipped the performance result. The soreness will be merged into Octone version 1.0. So the last part of the most important part is that we are launching version 1.0 by the end of this year. The version 1.0 is based on the next gen Octone project, which is a major refactoring of the Octone project to improve its performance. Because the changes are so big that we have to develop it in a separate repo and in parallel to the mainline Octone, and take us 2 years to make the NGO as mature as the mainline Octone. So basically, the NGO project, it takes a new asynchronous centric design that makes the code, the implementation asynchronized at every level, from the language to the scheduling to the IO and to how the library is implemented. So this so the NGO delivered major performance improvements over the current mainline Octone. So this will be the version 1.0 for Octone. So and this is the items that require an annual review process. We don't have any changes to the project charter, and the current project progression status is, I believe, is in sandbox stage, and I think we'll stay in the sandbox stage, and maybe we may apply for the incubation stage next year. And I'm not aware any of the budget allocated for Auckland, and I don't think this item is applied to Auckland. And last thing is that Auckland needs a new mentor. We can discuss this. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
So can you go back? Oh, okay. Or I can do it on, I'll share and just ask the same questions since they kind of match. I had the questions, you have the answers.
I'll stop sharing, right?
So here are the things that you had on your slides. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4 that you had answers to. And so on the budget allocations, the question, can you say more about what you guys are currently doing for test infrastructure and what you'd like to do in the future? Because we do have budget. You may not be consuming it yet, but we do have budget that we can help fund things. And so what are you doing right now for tests, whether it's CI/CD or whatever? And then what would you like to be able to do if we give you funds to do things, whether it's for hardware or for services or whatever?
Yeah, we have some, we rented some SGS enabled virtual machines on Alibaba Cloud. We would like to have this test infrastructure covered by the CCC fund.
Do you have a number like what you paid for it during 2022?
I don't have the exact number.
Okay. The budget that we have is you can request, it was originally up to 7,500, but now it's up to 10K, as long as it's within policy and stuff. And we also relaxed our policy a little bit. Back when it was 7,500, it was policy for hardware. And now it's policy for any type of test infrastructure, including, renting, SGX enabled VMs would be within scope of what you can ask. Okay. And so each project has funds that is available upon request. And so would like to encourage you to look up that number, submit a request for next year, because we do have the funds to cover it, if that would be helpful.
And so what about the common testing for infrastructure? So should every project rent their own machines, or we use the common test infrastructure?
Well, that's one of the questions. I'm just going to go back to the action item here because I have the projects here. That was this one. Okay. Just to reach out. I thought we had 2 projects that said yes, right? I think one might have been NARCs, and Auckland said
That's
no.
correct. Yeah.
Open Enclave said not this year, but maybe 2023, maybe a year from now or whatever. And so Auckland, we heard back that you were interested. And so the question is there enough commonality between what NARCs needs and what Auckland needs that it would make sense for the CCC to do one that both use, or is it not common enough? And that's why I'd love you to just say more about what you're actually using right now. So between, say, you and Nick, we can compare whether NARCs and Auckland are consuming the same things, whether they're different enough. So you can just say more about what you're using. And maybe Nick, if you can say something more about what NARCs would need, and we can kind of compare. We could defer this to a future meeting if that's necessary, but that's what we need to know to close this action item. So Tate, you just using generic SGX enabled VMs right now, and that any SGX enabled VM would be sufficient? Do you have a dependency on it being, Alibaba Cloud, or would anything work? Because I'm guessing that NARCs is probably not using Alibaba Cloud right now. Does it matter? Any other special requirements?
Maybe we may have some requirement on the Linux version, on the OS version. Other than that, I don't think I think we are okay with any cloud vendor.
Okay. I can ask the same thing of Nick. Does NARCs have a dependency on a specific Linux version? Does it have a dependency on any specific hosting provider or on-premise or anything?
Yeah, so we're testing these on several providers like Equinix, AWS, Azure. I don't think we have tried Alibaba yet. but I could get in touch with more details, technical details, with the person responsible for this, if that's okay.
Yeah, it would be, I mean, right now I'm thinking that a good follow-up would be for a representative from Oclam and a representative from NARCS, and it could be the two of you, coordinate and prepare maybe a joint proposal out of the things that you have in common. If you two can agree of the same thing, then there can be a joint request, and then we can deal with that as being one request from both Oclam and NARCS together.
Sounds perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
And probably cost is one factor, because I think the idea of a common test infrastructure, the cost was we were going to have to pay for a Linux Foundation employee to be a system administrator to manage like a common hardware machine. But if each of your projects are just going to go rent VMs on whatever cloud you like, and let's say that costs you, I don't know, let's say they cost you each $5,000 a year, but it's going to cost us $50,000 a year to pay for a sysadmin, then it would be much cheaper to just rent VMs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you were saying that it's maybe more economic to just have separate testing infrastructure, right? Instead of coming.
That's exactly the question, right? It's because having a common one makes sense if there's a cost savings by doing so, right? And as Dan mentioned in the past, it was at least from Open Enclave's point of view and so on, that that who was managing it was the bigger cost, right? Because if you're managing yourself, then you're just taking care of managing exactly the things that you need, right? Not anything that's for anybody else. And so there's some incentives for you to manage your own stuff, right? But if you want to share stuff, then somebody else might be managing it, or you're kind of co-managing it, whatever it is, right? And so think about that to say, because we have right now up to 10K per project, right? So you could manage, NARCS and Oclam can manage separate VMs, separate infrastructure with a budget of up to 10K, assuming that you request it and it's in policy and stuff. That's our budget guideline. If you can say, well, here's what a bunch of projects can use, and here's why having a common one is less than 10K per project, okay? Where our budget before was, it might be, say, 50K for the common test infrastructure, which would only make sense if you could do a lot more than you could do with 10K on a per project basis, or if you have like 5 projects, right? So either way, so that's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And that's why it was punted to next year.
And then the one other requirement to consider is if you need host access as opposed to virtualized access, because that's probably the only other reason for the consortium to own a physical machine.
Mm-hmm.
So for right now, it's easiest to do your own VM, but if we think that there's enough commonality, make a proposal, and we've certainly been able to entertain that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So now I think we should just try to use dedicated testing infrastructure for now.
Okay.
All right.
So the two of you are welcome to coordinate and prepare a joint one if you think that you can save money, but don't feel obligated to do that if you just want to submit a budget request for less than 10K, based on whatever you think that you've been actually using. So let's say you've been using $3,000 of credits or whatever on a per year basis. Just submit that, right? It's a budget
All right,
request.
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave and Dan.
Okay. Any other questions for Oclam or for Tate?
We need a new mentor.
Yes, you need a new mentor. All right, let's go to our mentor slide here. Okay, so here's the other people currently serving as mentors. And from this presentation that you've heard, is there anybody that's on the call that would like to volunteer to be a mentor? You do not have to be a voting TAC member. You just have to be somebody who's a regular participant in these calls that can help forward information back and forth. Not everybody's on this call, so we can also ask on the list.
Yeah. And as I eyeball this list, I do not see Meta or Google with a mentor role. Maybe might be missing other TAC voting members, but
I will observe that other than this one, there is somebody on this call or that just dropped off that's one of their mentors. So everybody else on here, there's at least one name that's an active person, right? Nick, me, Eric, Lily, Thomas, Dan, and Howard, who I think just dropped a couple minutes ago. We're all active and we're here at this meeting. So. All right, let's post this to the list and maybe follow up next time as keep that as a Kurt, if you're listening to this, keep that as an action item or at least an agenda topic for next time. The action item is to post a request to the list and maybe follow up next time on that action item on the action item slide. Does that sound reasonable to you, Dan?
Dave, one question. Am I eligible to be the mentor?
Absolutely. If you're going to be an active participant in TAC meetings, that's the only requirement because the role of a mentor is a go-between to relay information. We go to project mentors. Okay, here's what it takes to be a mentor. The responsibilities, assist the project in creating a growth plan if you're going to try to get to the incubation stage. Help the project determine what needs to be reviewed by the TAC as part of the annual review process. Right? You've just done that. Okay, so proactively inform the TAC when something changes that affects the submission template. You reported out that there was nothing here, so nothing in that category. Work with outreach to develop the spreadsheet, which includes any upcoming events where CCC projects are giving presentations and report that information back to the TAC at their meeting. So this is like the CCC Projects Day. Are you aware of the CCC Projects Day? And if not, listen to Richard's presentation in a few minutes. So. And then finally, be familiar with open source best practices. So my opinion is you kind of meet all those. So yes, if you wanted to be the mentor and you're going to be a regular attendee at TAC meetings, then I don't see any reason why you can't be.
Okay. Then just fill in my name.
Then you're volunteering. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we still have quorum on this call? Me, Dan, Lily. I think we're now under quorum, so we may do the official TAC designee next meeting or something. Yeah, I think we've lost quorum. I think we're down to 4 out of 4/10 of quorum right now. But thanks for the question, Tate. All right. Let's move on then, unless there's any other quick questions. I have real short items for 9 and 10, and I think Ben has a short item, and so we're going to give the most of the rest of the time to Richard here. We'll give him at least 20 minutes here. Let me hit the quick announcements. So the announcements are: we had the governing board meeting, and we reported out on the TAC budget. Remember last meeting we had this is the proposed number that was suggested by Stefano when he was here. The board did not balk at any of these numbers here. The board will create an updated budget that collates this and outreach and end user advisory committee and so on, and then vote on that and should have an approved one by the end of the year. But they did not push back on any of these numbers, and so just wanted to report that back out. That give you the status is right now. I'm optimistic that these numbers will be approved as is, since I did not hear any other questions. Only you're doing it right type of feedback. A couple of the people on the call, right, between Dan and Eric and so on. So, all right, election. Let's see. I guess normally I would ask Kurt to give us the summary, but since you already dropped, I guess I will have to give the summary instead of there. Since we only had one person that put in their nomination by the end, that Kurt chose to say we don't need a vote, and so we crossed those off. And so I would like to welcome Dan Middleton as the incoming TAC chair to be effective November 29th, which is the date that was previously announced, like a year after the last election result. So the next TAC meeting, Dan will be chair of. So first of all, thank you, Dan, for stepping up. Big hand for Dan. Congratulations. And as I mentioned, email, after I saw that there were going to be other good candidates here, I chose to step back saying, remember last year, I only put my name in to say, if I can do less, then I'm willing to do it. But given that there's other people here, I am very happy to hand over while I'm still on the TAC. When I was on the Internet Architecture Board, I loved the fact that 2 of the IAB chairs stepped back and then coached the new IAB chair while they were still on the IAB. It helped to give a sense of continuity instead of just handing over and leaving stuff. And so I thought that was a great example to provide continuity. And so I'm happy to do the same thing and still be quite active on the TAC and let Dan run things. And as he needs, I'm happy to assist. So in whatever he wants me to do. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. I think I had these in the other order. So I'm going to let, unless Ben has to drop, I'm going to let Richard go next. And Richard, you have about 20 minutes.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the TAC making time for the End User Advisory Council. Again, we planned this session after the last briefing. I've got a few slides to share.
Actually, I want to interrupt you for just a second
Sure,
here because
yeah.
I realized I missed one thing earlier in the call, which is that I always ask if there's any new attendees and have them introduce themselves. And so Bobby Chen, have you introduced yourself before in 2 TAC meetings? If not, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bobby. I'm with Anjuna.
Awesome. So you work with Steve?
Yep. Steve couldn't make
Awesome.
it today, so I'm covering for him.
Awesome. All right. So he was active in some of the terminology discussion. So if you could relay back to him what we did on the terminology stuff, just to make sure he didn't have any other comments, that would be great. But thanks for introducing yourself. Welcome. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
All right. All right. Go ahead, Richard. Take it away.
Yeah, no problem. So thanks again for making the time for us to speak today. What I wanted to do is to effectively provide you with an overview of progress towards the CCC Projects Day that's going to happen in February of next year, and also to provide a briefing for the project mentors, which obviously the meeting's recorded, so those that haven't been able to attend today can review. And we'll be following up separately through Helen and the Linux team, just to indicate the things that we need, back from the projects in order to support that event coming up in February. So I'll share my screen. I've got a few slides, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has before we move forward. So just bear with me, and I'll just share. Hopefully everybody will be able to see. Hopefully you can see that screen.
Yep.
And good, excellent. So what I wanted to do is just give you an update first of all. So previously we've discussed the proposal for what's been called a Confidential Computing Consortium Projects Day that's now scheduled to take place on the 16th of February. As you can see from the top line of the slide, we're actually planning 2 events next year. One will be a projects-oriented event, which is the Projects Day, but we're also planning to attempt another industry-oriented event later in the year. As you're aware, we arranged an event for Black Hat USA this year, which wasn't successful. We cancelled the event. We're reevaluating how to engage with industry. Obviously, we now have the governance, risk management and compliance special interest group. And as I think Dan mentioned on a previous governing board meeting, we might be able to do something in conjunction with them. So we're looking ahead to 2023 to see what other event we can put on for the CCC to engage end users at the industry level. But the purpose of February's event is to support the projects and to engage with the developer community. It's going to be hosted on the Bevy Community Events platform. We're going to be providing some details of that in due course, as you'll see from further slides. We're making available a session on that day for each of the enrolled projects, where there'll be a speaker who'll be able to present on the developments of the project and the activity and the objectives for each project, and a moderator from the project to help answer questions that are coming forward in the chat. That will also be supported by the End User Advisory Council and Linux Foundation personnel to ensure a smooth day. The whole event will be recorded in order to capture the feedback from the audience. And this will be run, as you can see from the bottom of the slide, in accordance with Chatham House rules. So although it's an open forum, any feedback that's reported back to the governing board will be anonymized, and the recording isn't intended to be made available to the general audience because of that anonymization clause. And there'll be some, a hygiene presentation at the beginning of the day. But essentially, there'll be an hour allocated per project with a 30-minute project presentation in which the projects are able to communicate whatever information they want to. A 10-minute structured Q&A session, which will be run with the audience for each session. And then effectively a 20-minute breakout between the end of that 40-minute period and the start of the next presentation for continued questions, effectively a virtual networking scenario, if anybody wants to continue the discussion. And we will capture that information and document the feedback in terms of what is reported back by the audience. The other important thing to mention is we are going to be performing a online survey for the attendees of each of the speaker slots rather than the day as a whole. So for each slot that people attend, they'll be asked to fill in a survey, and the responses to that survey will then direct a mail shot to those attendees where they will receive some goodies to thank them for attending, and also we're happy to distribute any additional information that the projects might want to communicate. So the event website is now live on the Linux Foundation community events page. This is the URL. At the minute, there's a holding page. We'll be providing more details as the structure of the day becomes clear, and further details about the event for registration are defined. We're working on that at the moment. We issued a call to action to the project mentors that went out on the 21st of October, and this is a sort of second briefing for them. And one of the other things that we're organising to support that virtual day is a series of activities around the FOSDEM Open Source Conference that takes place in Belgium on the 4th and 5th of February. So the first thing is that the CCC is going to be represented, hopefully, in the FOSDEM exhibition area. We've applied for a stand on behalf of the CCC. We're yet to receive feedback from the FOSDEM organisers on that, but hopefully we'll be able to have a stand area where myself and Ben and I think Nick from the NARCS project are expecting to represent the CCC, answer questions about its activities. Some of you may be aware that since I think 2020, there's been what's called a hardware-aided trusted computing dev room at FOSDEM. And this year it's been renamed a confidential computing dev room. So I know that some members of the CCC will be presenting their projects and activities in that room. There will be an audience with an interest in confidential computing, but we're also hoping to reach out to the broader open source community. And as well as attending the exhibition area and presenting there, what we're also going to be doing, hopefully on the evening of the 4th of February, is organising a social event, which will be something akin to an open house for FOSDEM attendees, where they can come and find out more. And you'll see that we're also looking for support from projects with regard to that. I hasten to add that the confidential computing dev room will be online only on the 4th of February and in person on the 5th. So what we're hoping is that if we run an event on the evening of the 4th, then we will capture people as they arrive the following day, and we'll also be able to address members of the open source community that are attending FOSDEM that aren't actually planning to attend the confidential computing event directly. Feedback from that event and the engagement that we have with developers attending FOSDEM will be disseminated to the project mentors after the FOSDEM event in order to aid their preparation for the CCC Projects Day. So where people are bringing questions about confidential computing, questions about projects, questions about how they can get involved, we hope to be able to provide that to support the virtual day on the 16th of February, so that we can have maximum impact from the event for the audience, and also hopefully to gain some audience members for that event from the FOSDEM community. It's normally something in the order of about 15,000 people attending. So what do we need from you? Well, from each of the confidential computing consortium projects, first of all, we're looking for a project logo for merchandise. We're planning to print stickers for each of the individual projects. Those stickers will be distributed with the mail shot as part of the Confidential Computing Consortium Projects Day. They'll also be available at FOSDEM, and the remainder will be distributed to the projects in order for them to use within other events that they're holding independently. So we're providing that to you as a resource. There may be some other swag available, including confidential computing consortium things for those attending the day. What we really need, though, is for the mentors and the project communities to actually promote this Projects Day within their own community so that we get as wide an audience as possible. We'll obviously be making use of social media, not only through the CCC, but we'll be making a request to the membership of the CCC, the premier members and the general members, to promote the event to their audiences. And we will need confirmation of the presenters and moderators that will support the event in order to schedule briefings on the Bevy platform and to ensure that everybody has the invite and to coordinate scheduling of the different projects according to the time zones where everybody's located. We're sensitive to the fact that we need to schedule in order to support the relevant day that people are available. We're also then looking for confirmation of any project representation that there will be at FOSDEM, so that where we run this social event on the 4th of February, hopefully we can, gather as many people associated with the Confidential Computing Consortium to support that event, perhaps even speak, to the audience that are there. So if you are planning to attend FOSDEM, or if any of the projects have put forward talks, then we'd be happy to co-promote those and also to invite you to the event on the 4th of February in Brussels, and hopefully to have a good evening with those people attending the session. And we're looking for confirmation of items 1, 3 and 4 by December the 5th, obviously so that we can make the organisational arrangements for the new year before the holiday period is upon us. And I'll be following up through the TAC, through the End User Advisory Council, and also with the individual project mentors with Helen in due course, to get that information on hand. In terms of the next steps, as I mentioned, we're looking for confirmation of the information to support FOSDEM and also the preparations for the CCC Projects Day by the 5th of December. We're planning to request from the TAC an opportunity to give an update on FOSDEM on January the 12th, so that we can confirm what the arrangements will be and how we might be able to support projects that are attending that event. We'll also be providing confirmation at that TAC meeting of the CCC Projects Day schedule, effectively the roster of the projects, in which order they'll present and the arrangements. We'll also be issuing a dedicated presentation template for project mentors in order for them to prepare their content with CCC Projects Day branding. And we'll also then be organising a feedback session after the FOSDEM event at the TAC meeting of February the 9th, where we can report directly, what we found when we were in Brussels, and that again can help to support the construction of those presentations for the Projects Day. Importantly as well, for those people that will be speaking at the Projects Day and moderating, we will also organise a familiarisation session and platform test of the Bevy community platform during the week of the 6th of February, that's the week after FOSDEM, in order that people are familiar with the environment that we will be working with, and to ensure that all of the technical gremlins are ironed out before the Projects Day takes place on the 16th. So I hope that information is useful at this stage. I appreciate the TAC making time for me to communicate that to you, and I'll be happy to take any questions at this stage in order to move forward.
So I had 2 questions for you. The first one, can you say more about who the audience is for the virtual CCC Projects Day? Is it besides the projects themselves being so if people are preparing a presentation, who is their primary audience going to be is the question. That's the first question.
Yeah, it's a good question, Dave. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to set the day up so that we can engage with people that may have 2 potential roles. The first would be people that might join those developer communities and contribute to the projects. They might not be aware of the projects, and obviously FOSDEM is an excellent venue to garner some additional support. So that's the first objective. The second objective, though, from the End User Advisory Council perspective, is to try and understand from people that might be already using the projects or might plan to use the projects or might see a use for the projects, what it is that they feel the projects should do to enhance the contribution they can make or to support the use cases that they think they want to put them to. So the idea is to gather as much feedback as we can at the start of the year for you, in order to support the projects in effectively directing their self-development, and also for the CCC governing board to get a visibility of what the perspective on the projects is within the broader community. So we don't want to be talking just to the CCC audience, as it were. We want to try and extend that reach, and that's why the FOSDEM event we see as important and useful, and also the promotion by the members to their communities through their social media channels, their marketing channels, is important, so that we get as much footprint within that virtual day as we can support.
And then my second question, thank you, is your point 4 that you wanted confirmation on was presentations at FOSDEM. Is that you just want to know whether they're already planning to go to FOSDEM, or are you trying to get them to go to FOSDEM? How do you want the question to be phrased?
So my understanding is that talks for the confidential computing dev room have already been submitted and reviewed by the organizers. Obviously, it's not a Linux Foundation event, it's an independent event. And so if people are planning to travel, we just want to try and understand who is going to be there, and then we can just coordinate sort of CCC activity and make sure that they get an opportunity to speak at the social evening we're trying to plan.
Gotcha. You're saying if they're going to be there anyway, you just want to know that fact.
Yeah, and we'll reach out to them and just sort of try and coordinate together.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Anybody else have questions for Richard?
So let me just repeat some of that, because there was a lot of different dates and a lot of different variations on the theme. So on February 4th, in person at FOSDEM, the goal is to recruit potential contributors, and you want to know projects that will already be there. Separately, on February 16th, a couple weeks later, we're going to have a virtual event, and we want all the projects to be there to be available to potential end users.
Yes, exactly. Each of the projects will be given an opportunity to present themselves and to engage with that audience. That's the purpose of the day on the 16th.
Anyone else have a question? Most of the mentors are still on the call, so any other mentors have questions?
As I said,
at least 2/3 of the mentors are represented, and it might be people that stick around this long in the call. So thank you.
Yeah, so I will be reaching out independently with Helen. Helen wasn't able to join today, but I'll be following up with her, and then we'll make sure that we gather and support you with getting the information together for stickers and things. The projects already have logos. We'll coordinate that with Linux Foundation. We're taking care of all the printing, etc. And then I'll work with Dan moving forward in his new capacity as TAC chair to plan the events in the early part of the year.
And then Lily asks in chat if all this stuff will be in email. I think the answer is yes, and there's also the link that Hesham posted in chat right above Lily's comment that you can also use if you need to compose your own email.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything will be communicated separately, Lily, so we'll make sure we follow up with everybody independently, and the information will be cascaded to the CCC community through the End User Advisory Council pages, and also through the event page, which we'll be updating as the planning solidifies.
All right. Thanks, Richard, for the update, and appreciate doing things that will help the projects. And so let's try to get the word out.
So. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the
time.
Right.
All right. So then, Ben, over to you for outreach updates.
Yeah. So I think this is the topic of the landscape topic. So it was explained to me that it probably wasn't explained well because I wasn't here when it came up in the TAC, and so I thought I would, since I had the idea, I thought it'd be take a few minutes to explain, one, the problem, two, what I see we could do as an opportunity, and three, if we wanted to move forward on it, there's some interest, what I think would be kind of the next first step. So unfortunately, I don't have any slides, so just imagine me waving my hands around. So what some people, so it got termed CNCF landscape type project. I don't know if that's really quite adequate, but it is very similar. So if you're familiar with that, it's the idea of kind of like you have this kind of a landscape, and there are, you know, kind of like technologies put in some type of graphic that kind of shows some kind of, you know, architecture or, you know, association between different technologies, some kind of logical layout. And at a high level, I would probably agree with that. What I'm really trying to get to is answering the problem. So, you know, if we step back and we say CCC is all about awareness, and we're trying to drive awareness, and let's say we get somebody who says, hey, this confidential computing thing sounds exciting, I would like to learn more. Let's say they learn a little bit more and say, this sounds great, I want to start playing with some technologies. You know, they know their own infrastructure, they know all this stuff, but where the hell do they start? I mean, they might have heard a particular project, maybe it sounds great, but how would like an architect or somebody who's coming in actually figure out what are the types of pieces or projects that might be more appropriate for their environment to start thinking about or jumping in with? There's no map to kind of like get an idea of where they could maybe start. And I'm not saying there needs to be like a trail map, like you start here and you go there. What I'm envisioning is kind of like kind of a map that talks about the technical stack, right? That says then projects fit in there like Legos at different sizes to span the various types of hardware that can be supported by those projects, and provide maybe different types of functionalities, because not every project handles confidential computing the same. They don't all support the same functions. They're not in the same spot in the stack vertically, and they're not supporting the same hardware. So I am looking at something a little more, pardon me, architecture-ish like, but that maps to technical capabilities. It is not meant to be, I'll say, 100% accurate, because that might be hard. If we could, hey, I'd love it. I'm just trying to get something that is more directional in accuracy, and gives people a rough idea of where to start. I could see this being technology project-based first. I could eventually see this eventually being mapped into, you know, here are companies that are supporting these projects or are supporting certain capabilities in the future. But my primary interest is to map out the technologies. I don't know if there's any questions, but if there are questions, just stop me, or throw your hand up or throw a virtual apple at me. If you were to ask me what the next step is, what I would really like is, I know there's a lot of amazingly smart people in this room. I don't think everybody has every answer, but if we could get a few people to start kind of working on, you know, a virtual collaboration space, and start trying to put attributes next to various projects, at least the internal projects that we've already have some mentors for and have some relationships with, that would be huge. I don't think it should be closed to non-CCC projects, is my opinion, but we can figure that out. I think the reason why we want to include them at first would be a simple matter of we just don't have enough knowledge to know how to classify them. And so I would just look for a couple well-founded technical TAC members who could sit there and try to describe where projects might be in terms of, you know, capabilities and CPU support and whatnot, so that there is some kind of understanding if somebody knew that they wanted to do something in terms of, you know, hey, I'm locked into a certain language for my software workloads, or I'm locked into a certain CPU vendor, or I don't want to be locked into, you know, something, or I'm looking for something that does these various capabilities within confidential computing. That's kind of what I'm trying to answer. I know it's not easy, but I'm trying to figure out how we could start. So I'd love to either rally some folks or let some intelligent folks go run off and try to see what they can come up with.
So I think in the TAC, there's been two things overall in this category that's been started. And this is for history. Don't take this as a reason to not. This is trying to summarize what the past TAC had done and not done, and why, without necessarily saying I don't take this as this is a bad idea, right? So I just trying to be neutral here. The first thing that was done is in the analyst briefing deck. Okay, we actually have a slide in the early analyst briefing decks we did with Gartner and so on that had 3 concentric rings. If I remember right, it was 3, right? We had like CCC projects, and then you had projects from CCC members that were not CCC projects, right? So like if Intel had a project or Red Hat had a project or ARM had a project or whatever, but it wasn't in the CCC, right? So it's the next ring. And there was the overall landscape, which is just other things out there in the overall space, maybe even in other consortiums. So for example, OPTI is something that was in the outer ring because it's it's a confidential computing project that's over in trustedcomputing.org, right? So we had this concentric rings of stuff that was just advertising a bunch of projects. And so we evangelized that to analysts who already knew about such things and were trying to write papers. And we said, here's how to think about those, given that you already did that. But we didn't actually have any CCC material other than the analyst deck that actually had surveys of anything other than the CCC projects, right? So the only one in the past was the actual analyst briefing deck that ever mentioned any project that was not in the CCC, anything official. So that's one thing that there's prior collateral on. The second one is the one that Dan posted the link to, where Simon Johnson had proposed a set of project categories that's probably close to what you're talking about. Since I'll just show it on my screen here, since Dan was good enough to find it faster than I could. There we go. This was, I think this is Simon's version. Which was an attempt to give categories of which different projects fill in. And I've even seen a version of this that tries to add, okay, you know, like Open Enclave SDK is here, and other things are in some of these here. The reasons why we hadn't, at the TAC previously hasn't published this, is because the goal of the TAC was to say that we wanted to attract new projects. And we didn't want somebody to look at this and said, well, that's not in any of my categories, therefore they wouldn't be accepting of my project. We didn't ever want it to be a disincentive to provide something there if they didn't think it fit cleanly, right? So that was one reason. The other reason is that we have a number of CCC projects that don't cleanly fit into one of these categories. They kind of span multiple categories, and trying to explain that was also very difficult. And either whether these are the right categories. So we never actually got to a point where we had something that we were happy with. And so that's why it's never published, is to say we didn't want it to be a disincentive, and we were never really happy with how the existing projects fit into things. That was actually hard. So again, don't take this as it's a bad idea. It's just that's why it's not already done. And so that's my brief summary.
No, I appreciate it. I'm not saying this is a simple exercise.
Yeah.
I like that, you know, I was thinking something more akin to kind of like a hardware stack. So people would have that thinking of a stack, and then we would kind of go wide in one or two, or in one or two different dimensions to describe.
Yeah. If you wanted something like, if somebody's already planning on using SGX, here's the project using the SGX. That's pretty easy, right? We got that information, right? But I don't know if that's what you're looking for. So
yeah, and if we're doing something and I don't know, maybe you're telling me it's too muddy, but if it was too muddy or too whatnot, then maybe we need to have some different views, and it's like a you know, two-step choose your own adventure.
Yeah, like I said, but it was probably 2 years ago when it was, you know, Mike and Simon and me and anybody else who was on the TAC back like 2 years ago, that we got into these discussions, and we were never happy with where we ended up. And so we just kind of said, okay, maybe it's not worth pursuing at this point in time. And so it's kind of archived, right? So it's there in the GitHub repository in the issues or pull requests or whatever, but not in the checked in files, if you will. And it references the diagram that Dan shared. So if you want to resurrect it, then it's possible we can do something now, but you're right, it's not a trivial effort, and we're about out of time today, so you get the last word. So
yeah, so I would love to resurrect or do something. I don't know if it's a working group or just a couple folks working, but if anybody is interested, you you could throw my name at it, and if there's interest, great, we'll work on it. If nobody has interest, then I'll let my dream die.
Well, and Dan also has a good point there that he put in chat. You want to speak up and say more about that one, Dan, and then we'll close the call.
Just that some of that map was meant to be aspirational. Like, hey, if somebody's working in this area, we have an open block on our diagram. Please come bring this thing. Or if you've got an idea that's not yet a project, it helps fill one of these pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy kind of taking a hack at, the first hack at, trying to pull some kind of thing together, but I need to have technical resources to help me with the mapping, because I don't know the technical details of the projects.
Yeah. So the people that were the most active in the discussion 2 years ago, and we have a lot of new tech members and attendees of this meeting since then, were probably Simon, and then Mike, and then me. But now we have a bunch of new people here, so maybe there's new energy. So, but we are out of time, and so I would encourage you to maybe ask this to be a follow-up item on maybe the next TAC agenda, or whenever that you're ready to have more of a discussion, send a request to the TAC chair.
Yep,
Please,
I'm happy to look at it to one-on-one anyway, Ben. Just yeah.
All right, so then
Awesome,
thanks
Dan.
everybody. We're out of time, so let's go ahead and close the call. Thanks all for sticking around this long. And I will update Mike's pull request and hopefully start a vote we can close out next meeting to say, if the goal should be, my hope is by next meeting, we should be able to say that the white paper is done for the current version, right? Because we can always update it later. So,
Definitely.
all right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Gals. See you. Bye.
Thank you.